Hello everybody, this is Lara from Pure Elliott Wave with your free daily update for Bitcoin, Ethereum and XRP. Before I get into my analysis, always a good time, like in times like this, to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. This is the full price history of Bitcoin from 2010 to today. There is a series of higher highs and higher lows. In order for that series to be broken, here is the last major low prior to the last major high. We need to see this major low, March 2020, 4106.98, exceeded before we can have confidence, or any confidence, that this secular bull market is over and a secular bear market would then be underway. While this low of March 2020 remains intact, the series of higher highs and higher lows, the basic definition of an upward trend for Bitcoin, does remain. So don't panic. This still looks like a normal to be expected pullback, albeit deep, because that is very, very normal for this market within an ongoing upward trend. And when prices are low, the concept is buy when prices are low and sell when prices are high. That's how you make money. Panic selling when prices are low after you've bought out of greed when prices are high is what most people do, and most people lose money. Also interesting to note that as prices moved up and started to decline, volume is almost a mirror image of price. So volume is tracking price. Volume pushes price higher and volume declines as price moves lower. That's a sign of a healthy, sustainable market when volume supports upward movement. We had a really strong downward session from Bitcoin yesterday. I had said to look out for support at 27,400. That was breached. Next support below would be 24,800. I'm putting a big question mark here over whether or not this low is going to be sustained. Volume is pushing price lower very strongly. That is common to see at or very near lows for the cryptocurrencies. ADX now tells us there is a downward trend. It's in a very early stage. There's a long way to go before this trend reaches extreme, according to ADX. But RSI yesterday reached fairly deeply oversold. I expect one of two scenarios here for Bitcoin. Either this low is going to be intact and we're going to start to see some strength and upward movement, or there's going to be a consolidation and then a final downward push for the final low, which may exhibit some bullish divergence with RSI. Here is the low in November 2022. This is a daily candlestick chart. These two downward sessions were very, very strong downward sessions with strong volume pushing price lower. This was followed typically by a consolidation and then a final push to the final low. You can see volume pushing price lower just before the low was found a few days before. This is a selling climax. This is normal to see at or close to a low. The final low on this session didn't come with an increase in volume, but we did see some bullishness up off that low. ADX reached very extreme, but only after the low was formed. This is the low right here. Still, ADX was not very extreme. It's a lagging indicator. It wasn't until after the low that it reached above 40 and above both DX lines. At that stage, the trend is said to be very extreme. RSI did reach oversold at the low, and there is divergence on a closing basis between price and RSI. Back here, the close for price 24.71, and here the close for price 15.880. So after RSI reached fairly deeply oversold, we then see some longer term bullish divergence between price and RSI. So that's a pretty typical look for a low for Bitcoin, but they all are a little bit different, and that's the problem with trying to identify these lows. They don't have a set of features that is consistent and common to all of these lows. So what do we need to see to have confidence that Bitcoin has found a low? First of all, it'll be one of two scenarios. Either the low is in here, or we're going to see consolidation and then another downward push to a final low. If the low is in here, or it comes soon, either way, I want to see this channel breached, and I want to see a new high above 3206.08. That's the last swing high within this downward trend, and that would break the series of lower highs and lower lows, which is the basic definition of a downward trend. So a new high above this point and a full daily candlestick above this channel and not touching it, that would give us strong confidence that a low would finally be in for Bitcoin. Now that is some distance away, I know. That's okay. Don't try and pick lows. Trying to pick lows and highs is going to see you fail more often than not. Try and get the movement in the middle. You're never going to be able to identify exactly at the low or exactly at the high, but you can get close enough so that you can gain profit from most of what's in the middle. So that's the idea of what I'm trying to do here. Ethereum weekly chart, I'm going to have a big question mark about these lows from yesterday. We could see some consolidation and a final low, and there's a little bit of room to go before Ethereum finds support at the lower edge of its base channel, drawn from 1 to 2 with a copy on 1. Minute 2 may not move beyond the start of 1 below 1074.40. The next movement for Ethereum will be a third wave at 2 low degrees with an intermediate wave 1. The bigger picture still very, very bullish for Ethereum. Looking at the daily chart level, what do I want to see to identify this low for Ethereum? Well, the Elliott wave structure could be complete. I've drawn a channel around minuet wave C. I want to see this channel breached, and I want to see a new high above 1875.24. If I can see those two things, I'll have confidence that this low is intact for Ethereum. A big question mark over whether or not this low is going to be held. We could see some consolidation and then a final low. We could also see the low formed yesterday. One of those two scenarios, and it's not possible to tell which scenario is going to play out. For now, there is a downward trend for Ethereum. Look out for next support at 1360. Volume strongly pushing price lower for a selling climax. ADX is giving a strong bearish signal for Ethereum. There is a downward trend in a relatively early stage. There's quite a long way to go before this trend reaches extreme, but ADX doesn't always indicate the trend is extreme at the low. It's a lagging indicator. It could reach extreme after the low. RSI also reached fairly deeply oversold yesterday for Ethereum. Now remember, we could see a consolidation and a final low for price and some bullish divergence between price and RSI. If that happens, I'm going to have quite a lot of confidence in a low for Ethereum. This could also be the low, one of those two scenarios. Money flow also just reaching oversold. Somewhat bullish for Ethereum. If the low isn't here, I am expecting it to come sooner rather than later. On balance, volume is making new lows prior to price, and so this is actually quite bearish. I read on balance volume as a leading indicator. So for Ethereum, essentially the same bottom line as I have for Bitcoin. A new high above 1875.24 and a breach of this channel is required for confidence that a low has been formed. Until that happens, I am looking at one of two scenarios. Either the low has formed here and this lower wick is extremely bullish, or we're going to see some consolidation and then a smaller range downward session to a new low before the low is finally found. My big concern for XRP was that price hadn't been made a deep enough pullback for a normal depth for minute wave 2 following minute wave 1 leading expanding diagonal. That concern is now allayed somewhat, and price has overshot the lower edge of this support line. This is a base channel around minor 1 and 2, or slightly adjusted. I'll push the upper edge up onto this high. So a big question mark still over XRP, but the Elliott wave structure is now complete. It's a really good looking double zigzag, A, B, C, brief shallow X, A, B, C. There's a very bullish long lower wick for XRP. There's now strong resistance above at 55 cents and support below is next at 40 cents. I've drawn a channel around XRP from this low to this low with a copy on these highs. The bottom line for XRP is pretty much the same. I want to see the last swing high within the pullback breached, 0.6650, and I want to see this trend line breached with a full daily candlestick above and not touching it in order to have confidence that this pullback is over and the next bullish run is in its early stages for XRP. Volume is pushing price lower for XRP, but it's not as explosive as Bitcoin and Ethereum, but volume is pushing price lower. That is bearish, but again, this is a look that is associated with a sustained low at or near a sustained low. ADX tells us there's a downward trend in a relatively early stage for XRP. For these cryptocurrencies, ADX does not have to reach very extreme at the low. It could reach very extreme after the low. It's a lagging indicator. RSI has reached reasonably oversold for XRP. Money flow has not reached oversold for XRP. So far, there could be some bullish divergence developing between money flow and price, but I prefer to wait to see a pivot develop in price before I identify if there's any divergence. I've learned the hard way that if you anticipate it, and you could say there is divergence here, price has made a lower low and money flow has made a higher low, but price hasn't yet developed a pivot pivot. So if you don't wait for the pivot, sometimes that divergence just disappears. You can eliminate those false signals, as I call them, by waiting for the pivot to develop in price. And this is what I mean by a pivot. Here's a pivot, here's a pivot. So we want to see a good green upward session before we can say that this is a pivot. For now, the current session could take price lower, but I think for XRP, again, one of two scenarios. Either the low is going to be held intact here, or we're going to see some consolidation and then a final push to lower lows before the pullback is over. And this is what I want to see, a breach of this price point and a breach of this channel. Until that happens, don't panic. A low is either forming here or forming relatively soon. And when prices are low, that should be taken as an opportunity. But again, don't try and pick the low. Wait until you see the low has formed and you have some technical evidence that a low has formed and price is in its next bullish run before you can have any confidence at all. Because until you see that, it is entirely possible that price could continue lower and make lower lows. That's it from me with your free analysis today. Thank you so much for watching and thank you for your support.